Okay. We're excited you're here today, class, to work with us and talk about this powerful book, the Greenwich Reads Together selection for 2020. I'm Miss Steinhorn, your teacher.
I'm Kyaiera and Mistretta, the Cantor House Assistant Dean. Who are we here with today, Miss Steinhorn?
We are here with some very strong students from our English language learner department. They are from all different countries and have amazing English language skills and are ready to go with this exciting lesson. We've been reading Just Mercy and have been really moved by it so far. So these students have been quite invested and have been discussing the important issues that this book is bringing up for us. So you can see them on there, and maybe if you want to say your country, you can before you share, but you don't have to. You can say like, oh, I'm Miss Steinhorn, I'm American, or I'm from America, and then share. But you don't have to, guys. Not required. It's just cool that you're all from different countries. All right, ready to go?
Ready. All right. Oh, hold on. Got my mouse on the right screen. There we go. Okay. So something that struck me about this book when I first started reading it was the title and a root word of one of the titles, justice, right? Or justice and just come from the same idea. And you guys just finished chapter 4, right? Yeah. And so he talks about justice and mercy. Do any of you guys know who this is? Any of you guys know who this is? So this is Lady Justice. She's on the front of, in the big picture, the United States Supreme Court. And you can find statues of her in front of just about every courthouse in the world. I'm talking the United States, India, Mexico, England, all over the world. This lady named Justice is in front of courthouses. And she's a really strong symbol. All right. So she represents a bigger idea. She represents justice. So we're going to do a little close read here. What do you guys notice? Go ahead.
She's blind.
Oh, she's blind. All right. What else?
She has a sore.
She has her balance in her mouth in her hand.
Yeah. All right. She's blind.
Well, what I can interpret from this picture of Miss Justice, Lady Justice, is that she's blind, so she's not seeing clearly. The balance is unbalanced, so that maybe could not represent justice as it's representing injustice, and she's not lifting the sword up
Interesting.
as well. So that maybe can represent that they're not fighting the injustice.
Oh, very interesting. Does anybody else have a read on how you can interpret some of these things you've noticed? I gotta say, Ms. Steinhorn, that sounded very reflective of today's world. What do you think?
Very reflective. Very.
Yeah. And you're reading about a book where there's a lot of injustice, right? And our news is full of injustice. Because I'm struck by that interpretation, because I think it's very different than what the ancient Greeks, the people who came up with this, thought of. So we had that blindfold first, and the ancient Greeks wanted that to show that justice doesn't care where you're from, doesn't care what you look like, doesn't care how much money you make, that we should all be the same, that she should be blind to our differences. And that sword, this is an interesting one, that when she lifts it, justice should be whoosh, fast, final, done. All right. It's not a steak knife, not cutting it up into little bits, done in one swift movement. And then the scales, evidence should be weighed on both sides. Everybody should have a voice. The person on both sides of the court case or the the peoples on both sides should we should weigh all the evidence, not just hear one side, hear two sides of the story. And then she's holding it, which if you go to the store and you get and they're weighing anything on the scale, like my grandpa had a scale for measuring things, and it had a base under it. There's no base on Lady Justice's because all the evidence should stand on its own. Shouldn't need explanation. And then she's from ancient Greece, so she's been around for a long time. Kind of forgot what my next slide was. Do you guys see any of this coming into play in chapter 4? Did you see this in the book? Any of these ideas about justice?
I think the scale is like important because if we think about Herbert's trial, it was definitely not a fair trial. And even though, I mean, he did commit a crime, he he didn't want to do it with the purpose of killing someone. And he was also mentally ill. So, yeah, he didn't really deserve it.
I don't think that was Herbert, that character. Yeah, there was in this chapter, it's not that Herbert Richardson is the one who was the Vietnam veteran, that one. So he's a different one. But I did want to just fill in the listeners that what we're talking about in this part of the book, because Jacobo brought up Herbert Richardson, and it's the case that Brian Stevenson walked through with Herbert Richardson, and it was extremely influential for him and a defining moment in his career in seeing this, the balance of injustice. And yes, like the other case that the book dominates, Walter Macmillan, isn't brought up as much in chapter 4, but this is such a pivotal point in the text. That's one reason we're looking for it. This is the person who fell in love and followed the woman to the South and to Alabama, and then put the bomb on the front porch that accidentally killed the 10-year-old girl, and the 12-year-old girl was witness to. So, and then went through the death row process and remarried a week before he was killed. And so therefore that new family is with him and Brian Stevenson through the whole process of his execution.
Just thinking of that gives me chills.
Right. Did I miss anything, students? I just wanted to recap it so that we're all on the same page. It's hard sometimes to remember where we are. Did I miss anything?
I think it's also hard to remember case by case in this book because he covers a lot of them, right? And that's, to me, shocking in itself. Yeah. That it's not one or two cases, it's so many, right? And that's a hard thing to keep all those details straight. But do you get the sense that evidence is being equal? Like, does he show us a court system that's listening to two sides?
No.
No.
No, it's definitely not. We see
Go ahead, Natalia.
we see a lot of injustice through these cases.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting to think that, like, justice is supposed to be equal, and then here we're talking about injustice where things are out of balance. And if justice is, do you see justice being quick here? Are things happening quickly? Like one quick movement of the sword?
No.
What do we see instead?
I mean, they're like the judge kind of like put Richards into like a death penalty like really fast. He didn't like think of what happened, or like he didn't look at the story like good enough to know if he had to go actually, like, he deserved death penalty. He just went straight to it because they only paid him $1,000.
I think that's a great point to bring up, that we get injustice in terms of looking at the evidence, but then we still have that quick decision at the end. Which brings me to this question. If justice is supposed to be blind, swift, meaning fast, and fair or equal, why is there so much emotion in this book? I know you guys, so this is where I'm turning to Ms. Steinhorn, and you guys can talk a little bit about that writing you guys did yesterday. Why so much emotion?
So I think it's a very interesting book, but when you read it and start to see all the injustice, it can be a bit upsetting. And as Michaela was saying, like, it is sad that nowadays this injustice is still happening, you know. But I think this book can really help us understand and be more aware that we can change, that we can make a change.
Okay. And lastly, Yuta.
You know what? I think this book is like really deep story. I really like it. It's really interesting, but one thing that I really don't like is that something's really being like so unfair. Like, there's actually two things that I hate in the world. The first one is tomato, and the second one is being unfair. Well, the first one is just a joke, but it's true. Yeah, I just don't like the story that sometimes saying like be like unfair, like man, those kind of stuff. Yeah, that's all.
Okay. That's how I feel too. I told you I really struggled. Go ahead, Lapsang. Was that your hand? Were you raising it? No?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I was gonna say, like, I thought, like, I think that this book is like kind of like a history book, you know, because it was like it is a non-fictional book, which is it's a real book, and it happened like in 19 something. So I'm assuming that this book was meant to teach that like what should not be repeated, I guess. But it's really tragic that it's still happening nowadays, you know?
Why so much emotion?
I think that because it's we're not only talking about like a group of people in general. We're only talking about Black people. So yeah, that's why might be.
I think because we hear the background story of each like person that is on trial, right? And we every time we see how his life was, we feel emotional because he like didn't have, well, for example, like I was talking about, he didn't have really a family. He was all alone, and was really emotional for me. It was pretty sad.
Well, I think as justice was supposed to be blind, swift, and what do you call equal, but clearly the justice in this is like racial and biased, and then it also like targets only people who are like weak or like mentally ill. So, and then when we read the story of both sides, like the backgrounds of the character, and then we read their backgrounds, and then how much they have went through their life, it also like it's pretty emotion. So yeah.
I think there are like a lot of emotions in this book because there's not only one case. There's a lot of cases, and we have heard their story before everything and what they have been through, and then what they're going through right now. And I think it's not fair for them to go through all that.
I agree. I went through and I thought of all the
Great,
words
guys.
that made me feel something, and I put them up. And I think a lot of them tie to what you guys are talking about. It was sort of a rough list to make, to go back through chapter 4 and find all the emotion words that made me feel something. There's not a lot of positive words on here. Hopeful is there, and warmth, but the rest of them.
I think hope and resilience are the positive emotions in the book because Stevenson never lose the hope and resilience. I think hope and resilience are important for him and his clients to overcome challenges. The legal system he used all the difficulties and adversities as motivation to continue to fight for a more fair society.
Excellent.
Powerful. Did you hear anything yesterday in your writing, or read anything in their writing with Steinhorn yesterday? Isn't that what you guys talked about yesterday? You tied this to.
Yeah, we posted some of our comments to Schoology and talked a little bit about that. Larry, yours stuck out for me. You want to share a little bit about what you put on there on the writing?
Yeah, kind of most of my writing kind of talked about the trauma that this case went on, how like dramatic it was. And I think that what this was like a quick decision in my opinion, just like say, hey, going on death row. Plus, like adding to the story that didn't really go through, as we mentioned. If a person has like a mental disability, I wouldn't just like put them on death row. I would find like another solution to this. But I also understand why would you do it. You know what I mean? It's like if a person goes on death row for like a mental disability, one good reason would be like you wouldn't bring harm to the others, but like that's a solution that's not good enough. I wouldn't, for me, like I wouldn't like kill a person that harmed anybody else just for like this disabilities. So
Sounds like you might show them a little mercy.
yeah, just show them like another way to like go through something. So.
Which brings us to that other word, right? Like like as soon as you were talking, I was like, couldn't have set up a better segue to the other part of this. Lady Justice is blind, swift, supposed to be equal, but our author wants things to be just, which is fair, right? But he also's got that other word in his title, mercy. So,
and that play on it, like if it's just as in only, it's like it's just mercy. That's the only thing that we should be considering. So there's that double play on words,
which I think is so neat. How words.
Here's one of the quotes from there.
Yeah, I love how that one word kept two meanings. Sorry, go for it.
Yeah, sorry. Sota, can you quote for us? I would like to think, Sota, did you hear me? Unmute and read the quote for us. Thanks.
I hear him. I see him moving, but I don't hear you.
There you go.
I think his mic isn't working.
Okay.
No.
How about you, Mark? You have your mic off, so you can do it.
Yeah. All this grieving is hard. We can't cheer for that man you're trying to help, but don't want to have to grieve for him too. There shouldn't be no more killing behind this.
Does anyone remember who said this and like at what point? This is in the courtroom.
I think it was the woman who was talking to the lawyer of the. I mean, yeah, I think it was the mother of the girl.
Yeah,
I don't remember at some point.
Yeah. Yep, definitely. That's close enough. What do you think about this quotation, students? I'm looking at it in my text.
Me too.
You said what do we think about this quote, right?
Yes.
I think that what she's trying to say is kind of like killing behind this. They're like done, like they've already seen of have been through enough that they don't want like another man to die. Because maybe they know that like what he did like wasn't on purpose.
Good, Natalia. I'm going to go to the next one, Ms. Mistretta.
All right.
Or do you want to say something, Lapson? Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say like, the mother, like, the 12-year-old mother, I think, by like the first quote, I think she means like all this like grieving is like hard, but like obviously, Mr. Herbert was like he committed a crime, but even though his intention was not to, and then she can't cheer for him, but like they don't want any injustice either, you know. So yeah.
They don't want the family, his family, like his like daughters, to go through the same pain that the mother's having to go through. And I think that.
Good. This quote we looked at yesterday a little bit too. Bruno, can you read that quote for us? Yuta, you asked about this word implicate. We talked about it, its meaning.
Okay, can I read?
Please.
All right. So, yet we were comfortable killing people who kill, in part because we think we can do it in a manner that doesn't implicate on our own humanity.
Same question. What do you think for this?
We spoke a lot about this quote yesterday
Mm.
in our class. And, well, in part, what I think is that killing another person will always implicate emotional thinking more than rational thinking. And what is it said? There's a dilemma that someone told me once that what separated us humans from animals is that we can show mercy and we can show empathy towards other people. And what this quote is trying to say basically is that the judges didn't look behind on the other parts of the story of the people that was being judged, like Walter or Herbert. They weren't looking to their background story and they weren't showing empathy towards them.
It's really powerful what you said, Martine. Really powerful. Setting up those two ideas, right? Emotion versus like objectivity, rational thinking, right, Ms. Mistretta? I think that's your next slide.
I was kind of blown away actually by that answer and the way you furthered my thinking. I hadn't thought about that. I've heard that saying about what separates humans from other living creatures is that ability to show empathy. And when I look at these two quotes alongside each other, I was listening to you talk, and I find it hard to find that humanity in that last quote, thinking it through the lens of what you were just saying, right? If we're comfortable killing people who kill, right? It sort of makes us animals, which I hadn't really thought about it that way. It's interesting.
It's really powerful.
But you brought me right to that, brought us right to the question that Ms. Steinhorn and I had talked about when we were planning together. When you think about the end of this chapter that you guys read yesterday, what other things that help us understand? Like, it helps us. How do these final paragraphs help us understand both justice, which is supposed to be logical, and mercy, which is supposed to be emotional, or really human? If we use what Martin just said, human, not just emotional. What do you think? How do these chapters? How does this story, where we're at in the book, because I'm kind of at the same place you guys are, help us understand these two ideas next to each other, or as if they're like having conversation with each other? Can we have justice and mercy? Can we have logic and humanity?
Oh, we can't hear Sota.
I think that we can have justice and mercy at the same time.
Yeah, me too.
Because we can incarcerate people, put them away like for a long time, and that should be enough punishment for them for any crime that they commit. I think that putting them to death or killing them wouldn't solve any problems or isn't the best way to punish someone, because no one owns someone else's life. So we shouldn't be allowed to be able to say who can be killed and who can live. It isn't fair for me, I think. That's what they're only way.
Thanks, Edgar. Sota, we still can't hear you. Maybe the volume, Sota. Try the volume. I see that you're talking, but maybe it's the volume for your mic or your computer.
Do you have a like headphones set up to it or something? Don't know.
Maybe you type your comment and I'll check it in the chat. So okay.
That's
Sorry,
a great idea. Good solution.
That is a solution we have to think about for sure. Anyone else want to share on that?
iPad. Okay.
Oh, I think that this book, well, from what we've read, I think this book is trying to show us to not just see what they have committed, the crime they have committed, but we have to see the whole image, like how they were in their past, or like I think also they should have always, like, for people in death row, they should always have like a mental test or something to see if they're like, normal, and if they should, get killed or sent to an asylum or something because they can have mental illness, like some of the characters we've read.
Very good. How about for the author? Like he's the one who took the time to tell us this story. And I think we touched on that yesterday, the last paragraph where he says that after Herbert Richardson was killed, he went back to his office the next day with renewed energy. He picked up his other case files, made plans, and so forth. And the last thing he said was, by the end of the day, I was persuaded things would improve, even while I felt newly burdened by the weight of it all. Maybe we could just have a mention of like what's going on for him. And you also watched, a portion of his TED Talk, and this book, the emotions are very much about what he's going through.
I see a hand.
Yeah, that's me. I wanted to share something about the last slide.
Okay.
So what I noticed in this book is that some of the cases happen very quickly. And I think that logic is not follow, not follow here because maybe the judges wanted to finish their work quickly because there were a lot of other cases. But I think that it should not be like that because the judges should like take their work seriously and like draw a rational conclusion when when like when decide who's gonna be in the death row or who's gonna be safe, you know.
I think that also at the end of this chapter, what the author is like trying to show is how fair we are with for example, he chose this person who went to war, who fought for this country, and they never show like mercy at all. They just um they judge him so quickly that they didn't even think about that, and his mental illness is because he went to war. That was the cause of it, and they never actually considered that.
What
As
I think, you can go, Stephanie.
oh, so as Edgar was saying, I think they take for granted the his vulnerability. How do you say that?
You have it, vulnerability.
Yeah, vulnerability. The judges take for granted that.
Oh, so what I think about this last question is that I think he doesn't want what happened to the guy to happen to someone else. That's why he picked, like, he's trying to change and like do it like better for next time if someone has like the same illness as the guy. And I think his emotions, he's like broken in pieces, and even though he's like sad enough, he still wants to fight. He doesn't want to stop because he wants to achieve justice for all.
I think the author, like in these chapters, he's trying to tell us how injustice it was before, and then in some places it still is. A lot of people don't have the same rights, and then it's trying to tell us that we should see how it is, and we should try to get equal rights for everyone, because it's not fair for any of us to have different rights.
Yeah, and I was like thinking that Stevenson want us to know like how like when justice are like could be biased sometimes, you know, and then like justice like it's hard, like good things are hard, and then it will put you down, but like all you can do be just be optimistic and keep fighting for justice.
Let's see. I'm going to read what Sota put in the chat here. He's putting his ideas. Glad we're working around the tech. I know he's still working on it. Said, I think I want the author to tell us that justice is merciful. Justice and mercy is contradicted, but to have common sense, which I think is interesting. The idea of common sense. Oh, I wish we could hear you.
One thing that like there was like this like thing that he said that like really impacted me, which was like it said abstractions about capital punishment were what one thing, but the details of systematically killing someone who is not a threat are completely different. That's like that kind of like impacted me because that like he wasn't a threat. He just like had some mental problems and he didn't mean to kill anyone. So like that's kind of like injustice and deserves no mercy. So you kind of like it like that goes kind of around your head.
It's really powerful. Students, your contributions are really impressive and powerful. This is heavy what we're talking about, and it's really amazing how much thinking this generates for us and awareness, and shows how much humanity we have. You know that this book is enlightening us to injustice and gives us a new awareness or renewed awareness of what's broken, as Jacobo had said, that broken in pieces. It's really powerful, and what we can do to put it back together. I see Miss Mistretta has a little like video at the bottom. I listened to this what's it called, podcast with Oprah Winfrey, and she brought Brian Stevenson on. Many people have read his book, and it's one of the reasons it was chosen for Greenwich Reads Together, of course, and have been really inspired by him. And if you search, I'm looking for more resources and so forth. I searched podcasts for him. He's on a number of different kinds of podcasts talking about, there's one I listened to that he's talking about right now, the time right now, and what's happening with the racial injustice in our society and how it can be fixed. He has ideas of how to fix it. So those are things you can also listen to and pursue. But this one really struck me, and I shared it with Miss Mistretta, and we said, let's definitely include that in our presentation. So maybe you can cue that up for us, Miss Mistretta. We can hear what he has to say with Oprah Winfrey, who I don't know if you know her, but was a magnanimous, like a huge personality on TV, and an advocate for many different causes, and uses her power to promote good and well-being in the world.
Yeah. So here's hoping technology works.
Yes. Okay. How would you define mercy? Mercy is like a mirror. I think mercy is what you give to others with the hope that it'll come back to you. It's what you give to people who don't deserve it. It's what you give to people who haven't asked for it. It's what you give. That's an aha. You give it to people who don't deserve it. That's why it's mercy. Yes. 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 That's why we say, Lord, have mercy Absolutely. on me. That's right. Yeah. Absolutely. And justice is? Justice is a constant struggle. It's what we need to respond to so many of our problems. I tell people all the time, I don't believe that the opposite of poverty is wealth. I think we talk too much about money. I think the opposite of poverty is justice. It's the way we relate to one another. If we create conditions that allow us to be more honest and fair and just, that's how we deconstruct poverty.
Wow. Right. I think that powerful stuff, right? Listening to that, I thought of what Ms. Steinhorn you noted before, that just has two meanings. So if we just have mercy, right?
That mirror, right? That was really giving it to people who don't deserve it.
I'd love to know what some of you think about that, if anything jumped out at you. Martin, was that a hand?
Yeah, I want to add something, but besides the audio that we heard, that I was on this summer school, the English summer school, and one assignment that we did was the danger of a single story. And we listened to a few TED Talks. One of them was Chimada Adichie's. I don't know if you know her. She's a writer. And
yes, I just want to throw in there, she was also a Greenwich Reads Together author. Her book Americana was picked. She's a fantastic Nigerian writer. Go ahead, Martin.
Yeah, and that she came to study here to US, and when she came, what the people that was around
I think this ties very nicely, Martin, with what Sota put in the chat. He put something about how we don't alienate others when we use the emotion of mercy, when we feel mercy. Right. Then that's single story is a powerful idea, and that idea of mercy is also powerful. We can't alienate someone. If we hear more than one story about them, we start to feel maybe more connection.
We're coming close to the end of our class and our time together. And I really want to say thank you to all of you for challenging your own selves and each other with these deep thoughts. It's really impressive. I'm really impressed and enlightened myself by your contributions and by the way you think about the world. And I want to thank Miss Mistretta for joining us. You're always welcome in our class too.
Thank you for letting me join you. I so appreciate reading with a community and getting to hear what you all have to say about a book. That's the reason we read, right? So we can talk about stories with other people, so we can connect with people, so we can have more empathy and emotion and more stories to understand each other with. Sort of the whole mission of Greenwich Reads Together. So thank you, Ms. Steinhorn, and thank you, students, for your insights. I really appreciated getting to join you guys today. Thank you.
Thank you to Ms. Mistretta.
Nice to meet you, Mistretta.
Nice to meet you guys.